Hi, I'm Cindy from BeDownSwear.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make a skirt with strips of fabric. It is really easy to do. It's definitely a beginner project because your strips don't have to be perfect. As a matter of fact, you don't want them to be perfect. You want them to be just a little off on each one. Otherwise, you start to see a very even pattern, and it kind of defeats the purpose of this particular skirt. This skirt has a lot of motion, a lot of movement. You'll see nice lines of the legs of the dancer, yet still have it slightly covered up. It's a great project to do. So in this skirt, I've cut some strips. I've cut some regular white Lycra. I've cut some lace, and I'm cutting some mesh now. If you just take the fabric and you fold it up, make sure it's nice and even. And the strips don't have to be perfect because you don't want them all uniform. You want different widths, different thicknesses, and different fabrics. Just go ahead and cut that line. Oops, missed a little piece here. Get that line. And then you're going to come in and say, okay, this one I want to be 1 inch long. This one 2 inches. Then we'll go with it's somewhere in between. And then one more about 1 inch. Because if it's all even strips, it'll just look like stripes versus different flowing pieces. I like the different textures. And if you cut the line straight, it'll work out perfectly. If you see that it's all crooked and kind of off, it means your fabric wasn't folded right. In this particular one, I'm going to fold this into thirds. And then I'm going to cut the top and cut the bottom for strips. So we'll do it with all of these. Put these together. And we'll go with thirds. So we'll cut that one, and then we'll cut along the top piece. It's a really simple way to just cut some strips. So I'm going to have these 3 piles of strips that I'm going to intermix in. I suggest you do at least 3 fabrics, but if you can do more and you find a lot that really work together, you might want to go as much as 5, but if you go beyond that, it just looks like one single strip everywhere. You want to make sure there's no rhyme to it, no reason, it's not a specific pattern, because otherwise people will see a pattern in it. So now I've also cut a length of Lycra for the waistband. I'm going to fold it so the insides are together. The elastic is the right length. And what you'll want to be careful with when you're sewing this on, you want to have about 1/4 inch from the elastic to the Lycra, just a space there for when we turn it, it'll be snug and it won't make the elastic curl. But if you go too far, there's too much fabric, and if you go too small, the elastic will curl like this, and you want to keep it nice and flat. So let's work with this first. I'm going to pull the machine over, and I suggest you use matching threads. I'm using a different color thread so that you can see the difference. So I'm going to want to put this in here. I'm going to want to set it up. Now we're going to want this on a straight stitch. If you have a stretch stitch, it's good, but you want to make sure that the fabric isn't laying funny on there. If you have an overlock, even better. So I'm going to sew it with that 1/4 inch space, if you can see right there. And we're just going to go ahead and sew that right on this very edge of the elastic. Now I like to have extra fabric on this side. And the reason is because if you cut too close and you mess up when you turn the belt, you'll be in trouble. And so along the way, I just keep making sure this lays nice and flat. And then hold it taut and keep that 1/4 inch going, and just keep going, and then you'll sew it to the very end. Then what you're going to do is you're going to want to take this and trim the excess edge off, go all the way to the edge of the elastic without cutting the elastic. Just go slow if you need to. If it's your first time doing it, don't worry about it. And then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to turn this inside out. Now I've already done it with this piece here. So what you're going to get is an even finish on the front, making a nice clean belt. On the back, you're going to get this fold like this. I like to keep this at the top, then I can sew everything down below it. So I'm going to take the belt and I'm going to have this edge on that side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, let's sew it together first. That'll be the best way to do it. So I'm going to take the front sides, put them together. I'm going to go in. I already measured what I needed, and I want to make sure it's snug, but not so tight it works its way up to the waistline. So I have it exactly where it should be, minus an inch. You could go 2 inches. Just play with it on the dancer and make sure it stays where it's going to have a move around a little. Use a safety pin while you do that. Pin it in place and then see when she moves how it feels and how it moves. And then get your right exact spot and then just straight stitch it up and back. Make sure and lock that stitch in because there's going to be a lot of pressure on that. Now I like to take it and fold this open and stitch it. And I'll do that on the top and bottom usually. But now I'm going to take this. I'm going to put it in the machine with that edge on the top. And you can either work from the back side like this, or sometimes I like to do it from the front side so I can watch the stitching. And if you want it all the way around, then you can start at the back and work your way around. If you want it to be half, you can just measure exactly where you want to start on front and back and start on one side, work your way around to the other. So in this particular case, we're going to go ahead and do the whole thing. So I'm going to take this fabric. Now remember, you have a few choices. You can go flat or you can pinch it a little, which will give it a little texture. I tend to like it pinched just a smidge. So I'm going to put that in. I'm going to zigzag back and forth just to get it started, make sure it stays in place. And then I'm randomly going to cross over. And some I'll pinch, some I won't. Some I'll use a little bit. Sometimes I'll use a lot. And then it's okay if you go the same one twice because it breaks up any pattern. And then you just keep feeding them in. Just watch this. Make sure it stays even all the way around. And then keep going with the lace. Remember, just keep it random. And just keep sewing. And then when you get to the end, you'll stop. I'll show you real quick. So there it is right there. And that's how you do this type of a skirt. Once you put it on the dancer, you'll pin the length you want it. And then I'll show you how to cut that in just a second. So here's the skirt with all the strips sewn on it. You can put more on it if you want. I always say put it on the girl, play with it, look, see if there's any missing spots. You'll want to stretch it, make sure nothing snaps on it. I do suggest maybe using a stretch stitch or a zigzag across the top of the elastic because when you're sewing it in, sometimes if those parts snap going on and off a girl, it'll make a big difference. So what we're going to do now, I always cut the pieces longer because you can go back and trim it up, but you can never add length. So then we'll just lay it down. We'll measure out the length that we needed. In this particular case, I determined that I wanted it 13 inches past the belt. And so what I'll do is just set this down and cut. Now you could, if you want, pin it, but I just simply like moving it straight across. It makes it nice and quick. You want to make sure all these pieces are down. And then keep going across like that. Now, what you'll always want to do then is just shake it a little, lay it back down. There's going to be a piece or two, a straggler that comes out, and you can cut straight across. Something that you'll want to think about also, you can always take these pieces and V them. In this particular skirt, I want it straight across. So there we go. It's really that easy. Thank you for watching our video. And if you enjoyed it, make sure and click here to subscribe because we're going to have some amazing DIY videos coming out. And if you want to get our free, complete Dance Costume DIY Guide, click right here or go to bdancewear.com/DIY guide. And lastly, if you have any questions or ideas for future videos, please leave it in the comments below. Thanks again for watching our video. And remember, be original, be colorful, be dancewear.com.